So we're talking about a great series that I love. We kicked it off last week, when life, work, and family collide, when it smashes together. And if you're a person, you're like, wait, I don't have a family because I don't have kids. Hold up, you got a family. You are maybe a sibling, you're a brother or sister, you're at least a son or daughter. You had family somewhere. It might be an adopted family, so you have that. We all work somewhere. Work could be considered school if you are a college student, or you have a 9-to-5 or something, and then you have your life. Your goals that you're trying, maybe you're trying to run a marathon, maybe you're trying to lose weight, maybe you love to play video games. I don't know what your life is, but you have life, and what do you do when they all collide? Because they do. And you can read books. I mean, right now, top-selling books are like Organizing Your Life, life improvement books. Those are top-selling books right now because it's that time of year. And so we thought it would be appropriate to kick it off. Last week we said, choose to cheat. When it comes to all of these colliding, choose to cheat on the things that matter the most, the things that Jesus said are the things we are to pursue. And we heavily lean to cheat with your family. We weren't talking about cheating in a negative context of like you've been cheated on and it hurts, meaning, hey, in life we cheat. You either spend more time at work than you do at family, but we justify it by saying, but hold on, I'm doing this for you, baby, because we'll get more money and we can get the house we want, or man, we'll provide so our kids can get to a school. And what we find out happens, as I've been a pastor for almost 17 years now, is that you find that down the road, when it gets to that time to buy the house, get the kids to the school, that the thing that you were fighting for no longer exists because you chose to cheat on the wrong side. And so our hopes is that through this series, we point you to what Jesus says on said topics, and you answer this question: what is Jesus saying to you, and what are you going to do about it? That's the hopes today, that Jesus speaks to you, and you do something about it. We break it down. If you can picture a circle, like a pie graph, I need to put this together so you visually can see what I see in my mind, but if you can go, okay, the first part of the pie, first quarter is, what is Jesus saying to you today? Next part of that pie is saying, okay, what am I going to do about it? What's the next piece is, what's the tangible things? What are the next steps to do? So I'm going to read my Bible. Okay, so now I need to set my clock at 5:30. And then the last piece is, who are you going to tell? And when I say who you're going to tell, makes me think of the Ghostbusters, or who you're going to call. But who are you going to tell about it? Because all those pieces, if you don't tell somebody, you lack the accountability to see the change in your life. I can will myself, I can do it. You might be able for a while, but having somebody come in and say, hey, how are you doing on that goal? They step in and can help you in the goal. They can coach you. And so if we can start adopting those 4 things into our life, I can promise you this, that you will see Jesus show up and show off in your life more than you had last year by simply walking through that pie graph. And maybe you're like, pie graph, oh my goodness, where have I come to? We're just trying to make it simple on taking your next steps with Jesus. And we realize that every one of us in this room are at different spots in a relationship with Jesus. Some of us, man, we're seasoned vets. We went through Sunday school. We've been confirmed. We know John 3:16. We can say it frontwards and backwards. We know what the Old Testament and New Testament is. Some of us roll in, we go, what's an Old Testament and New Testament? You're like, is that like a mint or something? Some of you are like, you're in between there. You're like, I know some of those things, but man, I just am not in speaking terms with Jesus right now. And that's okay with us. We want you to feel comfortable here today, and we want you to do business with Jesus today. And so that's our hopes. We make it as practical as we can today. Hence, we started with, I almost picked up the Saints baton. That would have been horrible. Bad form. This clearly was the winning side. We started with an illustration. If you came in early enough, you saw the balancing act that Chris had going with, he won. This represented the Vikings. The balancing act, see, that wasn't too difficult. It's called balancing, but at some point, you start to, if you missed it, they were all struggling to put it on there, and they looked at me like I was punking them, like, this isn't possible. It was possible. I did it with 7 kids running around my feet yesterday. I did, actually. But balancing, the tough thing with balancing is that you have to stay focused, right, or you lose it. You got to stay really focused. If I start thinking about other things, if I look this way, it gets really hard. If you begin to, I can feel it wobbling. I put my attention back. If I go put my foot up, man, my whole body is just nailed and driven in onto this. But I got to stay focused. To do more than one thing too much makes it really difficult. The other side of life, if you're going to say, okay, balance seems very hard to achieve, but that's what people tell me I should do, is rhythm. Rhythms in life. is probably much more enjoyable because it's easier to notice when you're in and out of rhythm versus I got to balance everything. Could you imagine if I try to hold both of those up there? One of them's going to go because my attention's going to be here and this one's going to begin to falter. But with rhythm, when music is in rhythm, you don't have to be a musician to see that or hear, oh, something's not right when something's out of rhythm. Holly and I, we have known each other since 5th grade. That is my wife. You saw her up here earlier. If you'd come up here, I call her the hotness. She was looking very hot today in her purple. I was thinking to myself, I did good. Okay, that's what I was saying to myself. Look at her. I can't decide it does make it or break the deal. I'm sure they are. But spirit fingers, yes. Jazz hands, I'm not. I do not. I do not want to wear them. But so we grew up together. We have, like when we tell our stories, we've been there for each other's stories. And we didn't give her a mic today because if you get both of us on a mic, she'll be up here all day, and it'll become some like comedy hour, and it won't be funny at all. But to us, okay. If you want to believe that we vlog our lives on YouTube, and we try to share what it's like raising our 7 kids, being pastors to a church plant, and then halfway through the week, we'll give some insight on why we parent the way we parent. If you want to subscribe to it, you can enjoy maybe or see what we're up to throughout the week. But we love doing life together. And when we graduated high school, we both went on to a program called ACE Teams. It was an internship program where they crammed a year of college into 3 months. And then after 3 months of doing all your college classes, you went out on the road and traveled with a team of 5 other team members. And we went on this. The first year, we were just friends, and the next year, we started dating. And as we traveled across the United States and England. At times, like she would be in Indiana, I would be in Dallas, Texas, and this would put some age on us. I would have to call her using a calling card because we didn't have cell phones at that point. Or write letters. We both kept all of our letters. It's just kind of gross, okay? It really is. But we have them saved. We looked at them the other day, and it's like, her handwriting's really nice. Mine's all scribbly. And I was like, how'd you read this? She's like, I just knew what you said you loved me. I was like, yeah, that's what I said. But so we got a lot of stuff going. But on ACE Teams, we learned this thing called the machine. And it was all about rhythm. And it typically takes 4 to 5 people. And so we're going to do a portion of it, okay? And then we're going to invite somebody to join us in this called machine. It's all about rhythm, okay? So just picture other people up here. You'll get it. This is our illustration of rhythm, right? Yep. Okay, so we would come up on a stage to introduce ourselves, and then it would be, if I were not upon the stage, someone else I'd rather be. If I were not upon this stage, I would then say, a policeman I would be, and I would go, stop, come here, get back on the sidewalk. Stop, come here, get back on the sidewalk. We'd get back into a line, and then we'd say it together, if I were not upon the stage, someone else I'd rather be. If I were not upon the stage,
a PE teacher I would be, 1, 2, 1, 2, down and up. 1, 2, 1, 2, down and up.
Stop, come here, get back on the sidewalk. Stop, come here, get back on the sidewalk. And then you step back. We did it. Well done. Now, there's a carpenter. There's a carpenter that would be standing next to her, and their line would be 6 by 4 and knocking on the wall. 6 by 4 and knocking on the wall. Can we get a volunteer that would like to try that, to try the rhythm? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, thank you, baby. You did great. No one wanted to volunteer. Because the risk of it is if I'm not in rhythm, I'll clock somebody in the head, which would have been Holly. I would have been good. I would have been all right. But you got it, right? Rhythm. It was like, whoa, could you picture 5 people? So you had the policeman, you had the PE teacher, you had the carpenter that was 6 by 4. So you get it, hand swinging, as I would say, stop, come here, get back on the sidewalk. Our hands swing right over Holly at the same time. And then you had a postman, it was take a letter from the sack and pop it through the door. So you run this machine and you pick up speed. And the crowd's like, whoa, this is amazing. Because when things are in rhythm, it's amazing. And actually, it's found in the Bible, which the Bible is authors that were inspired by God to write down what God had taught them so that we might today be able to look back and go, what is it like to be a follower of Jesus? To come back and go, oh, these are the things I need to work on. The Bible is not the rule book. This isn't like, you don't view a pastor as we're the referees in the game of life and the Bible is the rule book, and if I break one of these, the pastor comes in, blows the whistle, and like offsides, delay of game. It's not that. The Bible is the owner's manual to you. God created you for something great, and I believe that. As a student pastor, man, I loved it when young people, middle schoolers and high schools get it, they got it, that Jesus created them for something special and unique. There's no one like them. The plans that he has for them are massive. I loved it when the light bulb went off because I knew they would change the world. With adults, we come in and we go, no, I got too much baggage. There's no way Jesus can use me still to do something profound. That's a lie the enemy tells you. You have just as much greatness that sits inside you, no matter what happened behind you. Life is supposed to be much like the cars. You drive, you have a massive windshield so you can see what you're going to. It has a small rear view mirror that you can look back every once in a while and glance to see how things are back there. It's the same thing in life. Glance at your past to learn from it, but pay attention to where you're headed. And if you don't like where you're headed, make a quick turn. Stop headed in the direction you're going. And we know where to turn because we come back to the owner's manual and God steps in and goes, I've created you to function like this. He's created us as humans in his image to function in a certain way. And when we get out of rhythm in life with our attitude, with our desires, with the plans, when we get out of rhythm, all of a sudden it gets very chaotic. It feels very out of control. It feels like we're losing control. I don't have control anymore. You know, we don't ever have control. It's really the trust in Jesus that he's going to show up and show off. And so rhythm is great. When out of rhythm, it feels very weird. Balance, hard. Because you have to focus all your attention on one thing. If I brought up a bunch of plates and started spinning them, guess what? I spin. All of a sudden, the attention goes to the one that's wobbling. And no longer can I continue to add things into my life as the plates represent things in my life because I can only manage 5. Maybe if I'm really good and practice up, I could get 6. But my attention goes to the things that are on fire or wobbling when we're seeking balance. If we're trying to go, okay, so I've spent 5 minutes here in the gym, so now I need 5 minutes with Jesus, 5 minutes with my wife, I need 5 minutes with my kids. And all of a sudden, you just run out of 5 minutes. It's not designed to just be this balancing act. And so you know that it's not my own words. We're going to jump into a book of the Bible. It's in the Old Testament of the Bible. The Old Testament is broke up into 5 different sections. There's a history section where it really shows us how God wants us to pursue him. It's the part where the Israelites were once slaves, comes out of slavery, and then God comes in and says, okay, this is how you are to behave as a follower of me. These are the things that you need to start to develop in your life. And then all of a sudden we come into the books of the Bible where we begin to point to, hey, the coming of the Messiah, foretelling the future. They're talking about Jesus in these, and then there's these poetry books that are in the middle of all those that are really a reflection or a jumping into the diaries of some profound leaders in those days. And so we're going to jump into a profound leader, King David's son, King Solomon. He was amazing, one of the wisest men to ever live. That's what it says in the Bible. Ecclesiastes chapter 2 is probably not a book that we often go to, but Ecclesiastes is wrote by the wisest king to ever live and the most wealthiest king to ever live in Israel's time. He had everything. Like everything was gold. I was reading the other day about gold. This is a freebie for you, that if you want to know what heaven is going to be like, you know how like gold is like the thing in our day and age. Like, man, you have gold, real gold. It's like, whoa, you got lots of money. Heaven will have gold. It will just be the things that we walk on and drive our cars on. I mean, think about that. The thing that we put the most value in as a mineral is the things we drive on. It's like equivalent to our asphalt. Come on. I'm like, heaven's going to be pretty good. But King Solomon's palaces were all this gold, all this amazing stuff going on, known for all of these things. And he writes down this in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I said to myself, now come, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. So he's talking to himself. If you talk to yourself, you're in good company, the wisest man to ever live. Come now, let me test you with pleasure to find out what is good. But that also proved to be meaningless, he writes. Laughter, I said, is madness. And what does pleasure accomplish? I tried cheering myself up with wine and embracing folly. Folly, when he's writing folly, it's like up to no good. Mischief, doing things that you would go, that's silly. That's only things I see on reality TV shows. That's not real life. So he's saying, I've tried all kinds of folly. My mind still guiding me with wisdom. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under the heavens during the few days of their lives. And so he's pursuing all this pleasure, and he goes, it's meaningless. If I'm doing it, because he's trying to do it all on his own wisdom. Notice there was no, I went to God and said, God, what's the next move in my life? What's the plan for my life? He just said, I'm just doing my own desires. I'm going to try my own thing here. And he comes and says, okay, I got to laugh at myself, a bit foolish for doing this. It's madness. What does pleasure accomplish? He's speaking to the fact that, okay, in all pleasures, man, there's an excitement, woohoo! But then all of a sudden, there's the reality on the other side that sometimes all pleasures don't actually equal out to good things in my life. Sometimes, on the other side of pleasure, I have tragedy. Sometimes on the other side of pleasure, I have things in my life that I didn't want. I have more drama in my life because of pleasure. Not all pleasures are bad. That's not what I'm saying. But there are things that, like, with God on our side, he goes, hey, avoid those things. One of those simple, this is the student pastor in me that comes out when it immediately goes to sex. Sex inside marriage is phenomenal. Okay, outside of it, it's not how it was designed, so it gets complicated really fast. And those of us that have a history, we're going, yeah, it does. Boy, does it get complicated. Boy, I wish I wouldn't have. I wish I would have. Because God's not trying to steal fun. He's trying to say, hold up, I'm trying to get you to avoid drama in your life. And I know me, I want less drama in my life. But here I think that I'm wiser, and I can actually trump the system. I can figure it out on my own. And then I get caught. I'm like, oh, man, I didn't see that coming. It's not robbing my fun. Jesus is trying to step in and go, I'm trying to protect you so you actually do have fun. And so there's tons of things that Jesus is going, hold on, just avoid that, hold off, just give it some time. And eventually, like on that topic, man, if you save sex for marriage, all of a sudden, boy, it's different inside marriage. I would tell, as I've done marriage counseling for young people, that it's funny how before marriage, you're tempted all the time to have sex, okay? It's just it's like, yep, just have sex with everybody. That's just how you feel as a young person. And then you get married, and it's like, I'm too tired, I'm not going to have sex. My calendar's really full. At one point, it was like, yeah, all the time. You picture you get married, man, it's going to be like all the time. At least a guy does, I suppose. Woo, every day, every night, it's going to be beautiful. And then all of a sudden, you get married, it's like, whew, I really worked out a lot today. We could just take a break. It's just funny how we're tempted beforehand to have as much as we can, and then because the enemy knows that the way it's designed is inside marriage. And again, these aren't to rob of us having things in our lives. It's just the right timing. Jesus steps in and goes, hold on, the right timing, you get the blessings. It's like this. If God is doing something pretty profound over on this area, let's say God's showing up. I've been praying, God, would you do something in my life? And he's doing it over here. But I'm over here praying it. God, do something in my life. Jesus, show up in my life, man. I need some help. And I say, man, look, you're doing some amazing things. Just come over here, God, and do something over here. Just come here and do it here. I'm waiting for you to come over here. And God's going, just come over to me. Just find where I'm at and get into me. And then you move over here and it's like, oh, wow, that's so much better. When you see where Jesus is showing up and showing off, man, move to the area. Stop asking him to come to you. Move to that area. I wrote it like this after the Ecclesiastes bit on pleasure. Pleasure, although not necessarily evil, has its shortcomings. Much like human wisdom, Solomon reflected upon his tragic experiences in attempting to draw satisfaction purely on pleasure. If we spend this year trying to get pleasure or trying to get satisfaction by simply accomplishing all of our goals and having balance in our life, we are going to be very unsatisfied. And he goes and he begins to really try to overemphasize humans gratifying themselves without the experience of God in their life. There's always going to be a shortcoming. And so he jumps in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and he writes this: there is a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens. There's a time. If you're a musician, there's a thing called timing. If you're around, when I was in high school, I played the saxophone, and I I would go and they would tell us, okay, today we're playing in 4/4. That's the time signature, or 3/4. So now we all know, okay, that's the beat. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4, and you just keep counting and then you go. So you know how to stay in rhythm. And so the wisest man to ever live goes, there's a time for everything. There's a rhythm for everything. Earthly pursuits, this is what I wrote here. Earthly pursuits are good in their proper place and time, but unprofitable when pursued as the chief goal. Back to my illustration, the youth pastor coming out of me. I was a youth pastor for 15 years or something like that. And so going back to the analogy of sex outside of marriage, outside of it, man, it's not what it's done. Inside, all of a sudden, you get the satisfaction. You get what Jesus was saying when he talked about save it for marriage. Now, let me just, because you're like, okay, what are you saying? Like my marriage, no. Jesus forgives. He wipes all of our messes clean when we repent. We ask forgiveness. So don't go, man, that pastor said, if I had sex outside of marriage, then I'm messed. No, don't take it there. That's where mercy comes in those things. But it's learning what Jesus says. Okay, hey, look, I get it. That's the way it's formed. So then I'm going to raise my children in the way Jesus is speaking, not in the way that I missed it. It breaks my heart when we parent out of our mistakes going, well, I did it, so I guess it's okay for my kids. That's the way they're going to learn. No, parent in the way Jesus is now stepping into your life saying, hey, this is what's important. And go, oh, I didn't know that. I was once blind, now I see. So now I'm going to teach them. It's like I'm teaching my kids from some of my experiences. As a youth pastor, we used to do a video segment that was called Donkey, Dumb as We Want to Be, and we did really dumb stuff. I got into a ring with an actual WWF wrestler. They were setting up a WWF wrestling match close to where we were living at the time. One of the members of the WWF wrestling went to the church, and he's like, yeah, they called me out of retirement for the show, but we're going to go do that. I was like, hey, if I come and bring cameras and we set up this thing, will you wrestle me in the ring? This dude was 7'5" and like 500 pounds. Like his name was Savannah Slim. He was not slim at all. His costume was a straw hat and bib overalls with no shirt underneath it. And he came out, and that dude was ginormous, okay? His shadow, it's on our YouTube channel. If you scroll down there, you'll find it. I broke my foot in that. I got knocked out 3 times. And now I've gone to my children and I said, hey, listen, if you ever want to wrestle someone smaller than you, okay? I'm teaching them from things that I've experienced and said, you don't need to do that. I'm not saying, hey, you should go wrestle somebody that's 500 pounds. It's a good idea to them. I'm saying, don't do that. Avoid it. It's not good. I'm using a silly illustration when Jesus teaches you something that you had no idea at the time, it's not to shame you. It's so that you pass it on. And so on that topic or any topics we ever talk about, and you all of a sudden guilt creeps in, that's not Jesus speaking to you. Jesus does not speak through guilt. He convicts. Conviction says, I must change. I'm going to do something about it. That's when we talk about what is Jesus saying to you. And so you don't go, oh man, I didn't know that about sex outside of marriage. Now wait, nope, don't do that. That's the enemy to you. Say, that's my past. I'm moving forward. And now when I have children, I will teach my kids what to avoid, much like the wisdom writers in the Bible do. I think that King Solomon here is writing in Ecclesiastes so that he can give his wisdom to his kids. Hey, I've tried all pleasures, and me as the king, I can get anything I want. I just have to ask for it and it comes. I tried all of it. It's meaningless. And then he goes on and says, okay, after I've pursued all this pleasure, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. Verse 2, a time to be born, a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? And he begins to ask a question after he talks about a rhythm in life. He's referring to rhythm. There's a rhythm in nature already. In Minnesota, we get it. If you're in Florida, you might not get it as much. Here, you get the seasons. You know the rhythms. You understand that this cold is not forever, that the thaw will come. It'll be muddy for a short while, and then all of a sudden, if you're going to plant a garden, you got like 3 days to do such, because if you don't, it won't be harvest time because you will be out of rhythm, and so you try to get into rhythm with the season's rhythm. It's a reminder to us that we are designed to be in rhythm, not in balance. Get away from balance. Rhythm in my life and Holly's life looks like this. We understand busy seasons in our life. Like for us, Christmas time, the holiday time is super busy for the church and busy for us as a family because we've got to travel because our family's down in Peoria, Illinois. And so when it comes down to services over on Christmas Eve, we do Christmas morning here, and we drove down there, did 3 more Christmases, and you come back more exhausted. And we realized that this is a busy time for us, or it was. And so what do? You take your days off or your vacation time a little afterwards and a little bit before, so you prepare for the busy time. So you're preparing yourself. We understand that as summer months come, we do all the free unlocked summer camps that some of you might have gone to. We've got 2 more coming up this summer. We have 3 missions teams coming in from all over the United States to help us as a baby church keep reaching and serving this community, because that's our heart as we're growing and as we get to whatever stage we get to 20-some years from now, that we will continue to make a massive impact outside these walls. That's our heart. And so summer's going to be super busy. So we know that that's going to be busy. So what can we do that starts to prepare ourselves for the busy time? You have the rhythms in your life. It might be the school year. It could be the summer. But for you, you know at work, where's the busy season? So you need to prepare beforehand so you don't get exhausted as mom and dad and want to tap out. But you've got to pay attention to the rhythms. You've got to pay attention to it, and then you can't get out of rhythm. If too much is demanded on you and you begin to feel like, okay, we're out of rhythm here, then you've got to change something to get back into rhythm. And you and I don't set the rhythms. We first and foremost come back to Jesus. What's the rhythm for my life? Because we're all designed completely different. When I got on staff at Potential Church, that's the church in Miami that Holly and I worked at before we moved here. It's the 25th largest church in the United States. I got on staff there, and man, I was just like this guy that I had no business being on there. That's what I felt. They put me on the executive team, which is the highest team there. I ran the academy there, where it was really fun to learn the school system and be in charge of trying some new principles out. Like, we went to a homework-less school because I was like, man, what are we teaching these kids to take their work home? Then as adults, they'll take their work home. Let's not send them home with homework. I think that was the best thing I did. At least that's what parents told me was the best thing I ever did. They're like, no more homework from any of our students. I was like, no. They're like, that is amazing, because I don't understand algebra. I was like, neither do I. No more. Teachers teach, and they'll do it there. But as the time at Potential, man, 25th largest church, it moved at a fast pace, and I jumped in and I ran at a fast pace. I loved it. And I hired a staff, and all of a sudden I realized that everybody runs the pace that I run at. And I needed to help them define the pace that they could run at and be successful inside that organization, because if they kept up with me, all of a sudden they got out of rhythm in their life, and then they would quit. And it was like, okay, let me come in and help you in the rhythm in your life. If you work in an organization that the rhythm is too fast or too slow for you, you need to step in and go, let me figure out the rhythm for myself that's going to make me or allow me to be successful inside this organization. Great leaders lead themselves. Great leaders lead themselves, not waiting to be led. And so as you feel the rhythm out of whack in your family, you need to start examining what needs to change. Don't blame it on somebody else. It's you. Because you walk out of your environment and you go home and you just feel out of rhythm, you are still traveling with yourself. It's not work. We want to point to work. No, sometimes it's Jesus tapping us on the shoulder and go, hey, hold on. Right now, let's deal with you first. Jesus even comes along and paints this picture very well with this. He goes, okay, when you see a mess, deal with your mess first and then help them with their mess. He actually says it like this. The parable is, if you see a speck of dust in your neighbor's eye, pull out the plank, the lumber in your eye first. We recognize a mess because we've seen our lives messy. Oh man, that family, they're headed for trouble if they keep acting like that. You recognize it because you were once messy. And Jesus says, hold on, before you step into their mess, clean up your mess, and then go step into their mess. So when you feel that tension, something's out of rhythm in your life, examine yourself. Don't be quick to point fingers. Examine you. Where is it that you need to gain the rhythm again in your life? And then come in and go, okay, here's what I've learned about myself to your boss. These are my boundaries for right now, but I want to win inside this organization. Because as an organization, those people want you to win too, because you win, they win. But a lot of times we don't put a hand up because we're like, if I put my hand up, they're just going to think I can't handle it. No. As a leader of staff for Unlocked Church and at Potential Church, man, I never once, when somebody came and said, I can't handle the pace you're running at, Scott, I would come and say, well, man, let's figure it out then. Because I value you in the relationship we have. It wasn't like, oh, get out of here. Or run faster, got to keep up with me, because we are all uniquely wired and designed to do what we're created to do. We're not designed to be like your neighbor or your boss. You are designed to be you. And so be you. Be you. And then the last thing I want to just say, well, if I'm going to jump into the rhythm Jesus is speaking to me, well, how am I going to get things taken care of? And you can begin to worry. You can feel this tension of, boy, what do I do? If I'm going to make changes in my life, Scott, this is what you're saying, I feel I'm out of rhythm. Sometimes it is a job change. Maybe sometimes it's I got to change a seat on the bus in the organization. I got to take a step back because I value the time with my family. I don't value corporate success as much as I once did. I want to value my family, and so I might need to take a step back and be okay with that. But that might mean less money. That means less time at work so you can be at home so that you get into the rhythm that you need to be in. When we were on staff at Potential Church, when we moved there, we rolled in with one child. Legend was our oldest at the time. He was 6 months old. We rolled in with him, and then you fast forward like 5 years there, and all of a sudden we got like 5 or 6 kids all of a sudden. It's like the rhythm changed very drastically. One child, man, it's like you give us one kid, we feel like we're newlyweds. You know what I mean? We're like, woo, one kid. Yeah, we just got to make sure we got one out, got some shoes on. This is great, optional shoes, I suppose. It doesn't matter. Now that you have 7 kids, you figure out that most things are optional. Like, do they have to have clothes on? No. They'll figure it out, okay? They will. Most of our kids run around with no clothes on because it's like, well, if you're cold, you know where your clothes are. And we just don't sweat that stuff. Like the other day, one of our kids wanted to go outside to get something out of our Silver Moose, which is the van, and she walked out with no shoes on. And I thought, that's odd. But she can handle it, all right? She got some like leathery feet or something. And she rolled back in the house. And I was like, you did that the whole time? Yeah, I just walk up on my tiptoes. And then when I get cold, I walk on my heels. I'm like, okay, you got the system figured out. Look, you're a genius, okay? I got a genius for a daughter. Gosh, she's awesome. And so you give me one kid and it'll be like, woohoo! But the rhythm changes as you have more kids. I couldn't say yes to everything at Potential Church. I couldn't do everything I was doing because I, as dad now, valued the rhythm of being at home with my kids and playing with my kids and doing the things with my family, and so the rhythm changed. The organization, it wasn't their fault. It was me, and I had to go have a conversation and say, okay, I have 5 kids. I don't have just one anymore. I can't just let Holly do it. So this is going to change, and had the conversation of it. And because I was upfront and honest about the rhythm changing in my life, it wasn't the organization that changed. It was me. You know what? Everybody did all right with it because I recognized it was my rhythm that was changing, not the organization. And maybe you're not in an organization. Maybe it's the rhythms are changing with your spouse. It's recognizing those and making the right adjustments for the rhythm. And as I wrap up, it's what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, verse 25. Jesus' words, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life or what you will eat or drink or about your body or what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. Do they not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them? Are you not much more valuable than they are? Now, Jesus ain't saying sit back, twiddle your thumbs. No, because the sparrows, the birds, they move around. They migrate. They come where the food is. They're chasing down the food. Jesus is just simply making the point, hey, look, God's providing it, and they're moving to it. This is not Jesus coming and say, don't worry about anything. Just sit back. Life is all good. No, life is good because Jesus is on the job, but we work as if it depends on us, and we pray like it depends on Jesus. So this isn't a conversation. Just sit back now. We didn't get here to Minnesota and just say, Jesus, we're just going to sit at our house, and just people are going to come magically. No, we've been busting our rear ends because we love people. Holly and I, man, our passion is people. As weird as that is, we love people. We love people at our house. We love that people come and hang out with us. When we don't take that for granted, we love people. But we work. And we work. We do lunch with people. We move and meet people where they're at because we know that prayer is great. And yes, but Jesus wants to see us work. He wants to watch us do work. And so my prayer is that today something is said to you and you're like, okay, what's my step? What do I need to do? You need to begin to seek Jesus first this year to get the rhythm he wants for you and your family and start to begin to get into rhythm with that and then decide, how do I make the changes moving forward? And be okay with a step back maybe in pay, step back in maybe not driving what your dream car right now. It's not no forever, it's just no for right now. There are things Holly and I have on the list that we are going to do, but it's no for right now because we have 7 kids. One day we'll do it. We have tons of dreams, but we realize that we are doing something great with our children as parents. Like, I'm not saying we're doing a great job, but it's a calling to be a parent, and we're doing something that Jesus has asked us to do, is raise our kids. And when we're done with that, better watch out, man. Watch out. I'm just saying, we might have nice stuff in our house. Right now we have pallet furniture, and we do that strategically because if a child writes on it, I can just sand it down. And you don't know that our children have colored it. It's just the way I think, okay? But seriously, though, what's the rhythm Jesus is asking you to get into? Get into it because, back to the illustration, Jesus, get into rhythm. What I'm doing over here, get into what I'm doing over here. I'm really trying to do stuff great, Jesus. Jesus is like, no, my rhythm. I set the rhythm for life. I set the pace for life. Come get into what I'm trying for you because I designed you the way I designed you. And I know the rhythm that is best for you. Culture doesn't. Would you close your eyes and ask yourself this question? What is Jesus saying to you, and what will you do about it? Jesus, I thank you for these amazing people that came out in the snow today, in the cold weather. I pray that you're speaking directly to them today, that they are walking out of here with their next step in their relationship with you. Those that feel out of balance right now, would they forget balance and get into rhythm, and the rhythm you're asking them to get into? May they understand there's a time for everything, a season for everything. And when they recognize what season they're in and be okay with the season that they are in life. And when this season's up, they'll accept the next season in life because they're going to trust you. May we no longer worry about things. May we work as if it depends on us, Jesus, but know and realize we all depend on you. So show up and show off in our lives, Jesus. In your name, amen.